You clicked because somebody told you to rub a bar of soap on your shower glass, and it sounded either genius or insane. I thought the same thing. Then I watched it work with my own eyes, and I felt like a fool for every dollar I ever spent on those blue spray bottles. Here is the truth I found. A plain, dry bar of soap rubbed across clean glass leaves an invisible film that makes water bead up and slide off, so soap scum and hard water spots never get a chance to bake on. It costs pennies. It takes 90 seconds. And I learned it not from a lab, but from a plain woman in Lancaster County who has never once bought a squeegee. Stay with me, because the real secret is not the soap itself. It is a second step written in a household guide from 1861 that turns this trick from good into unbelievable. I will hand you that exact step before the end, and I promise you already own everything you need to do it this weekend. Let me take you back to the moment this cracked open for me. I was standing in a small mudroom outside a farmhouse kitchen near Intercourse, Pennsylvania, on a gray November morning, and the bathroom door was open. I could see the shower. The glass was so clear it looked like there was no glass at all, just an open frame, no streaks, no cloud, no white crust along the bottom seal. I asked what they scrubbed it with, expecting some secret vinegar recipe. The woman laughed and said, "We don't scrub it, we stop it before it starts." That sentence has been stuck in my head ever since. We stop it before it starts. Because I had spent my whole adult life doing the opposite. I let the scum build, then I attacked it. I bought the foaming cleaners, the daily shower sprays, the abrasive pads, the little pointed brushes for the corners. My bathroom cabinet had 11 different bottles in it. 11. I counted them the night I got home from that trip, and I stood there feeling something I did not expect. Not pride, anger. Because here is what nobody tells you about that white film on your shower glass. It is not dirt. It is a chemical wetting. Your soap, especially bar soap and body wash full of fatty stuff, meets the calcium and magnesium in your hard water, and the two of them bond into a waxy, stubborn crust called lime soap. It is glued to the glass by minerals. Scrubbing it off is a fight because you are basically chipping stone, and every single day, the water in your pipes lays down a fresh layer. So the whole game changes when you understand one thing. Whether that crust forms is not about how hard you clean. It is about whether the water is allowed to sit and dry on the glass in the first place. That is the entire secret the plain folks understood generations before anyone sold a spray for it. If the water beads and runs off before it evaporates, the minerals leave with it. If the water sheets out flat and slowly dries, the minerals stay behind and marry your soap film. Beading good, sheeting, and drying bad. Once I saw it that way, the bar of soap made perfect sense. Here is why it works, in plain terms. When you rub a dry bar of soap across dry glass, you are not smearing scum on. You are laying down an extremely thin, even, waxy layer. That layer is hydrophobic in the right way. It fills the microscopic pits and scratches in the glass where water loves to cling, and it gives the surface a slick, tight skin. Water hits it and can't grab hold. It pulls itself into beads and rolls straight down to the drain, carrying the minerals with it before they can dry into spots. You have turned your glass into something water wants to leave. Now, let me tell you exactly how to do it, because the details matter, and this is where most people get it wrong. First, the glass has to start clean and completely dry. If you rub soap over an already spotted, cloudy shower door, you are just sealing the ugliness in. So the very first time, you clean the glass down to bare, squeaky surface. Then you dry it fully with a towel. Then you take a hard, simple bar of soap. An old-fashioned, low-fat, high-lye bar works best, the kind that feels almost dry to the touch, and you rub it over the glass in long strokes, top to bottom, until you see a faint, dull haze. You do not rinse yet. You take a slightly damp cloth or your bare hand and buff that haze until the glass looks clear again. That buffing is what spreads the film thin and even. That's it, 90 seconds. And when you take your next shower, you will stand there and watch the water run off in ribbons and beads while the glass behind it stays clear. I did it in my own shower the first night home, and I laughed out loud alone in my bathroom like a crazy person, because it worked exactly the way that woman said it would. But here's the part that made me stop laughing and start asking hard questions. If this is so simple, so cheap, and so old, why did I never hear about it? Why did I spend, and I added this up, more than $40 a year for over 2 decades on shower cleaners? That is over $800 of my own money to solve a problem a nickel of soap prevents. So I started digging, and what I found was not an accident. Somebody profited from my ignorance. And the more I looked, the more I realized it was not somebody. It was an entire industry built on a very clever flip. Think about the logic for a second. The people selling you daily shower spray need the scum to keep coming back. A product that prevented buildup forever would sell one time and never again. A product that you have to spray every single day that only manages the problem without ever ending it sells forever. So the whole category was designed around treating the symptom on repeat, never around the prevention that ends the sale. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is just how a recurring revenue product has to be shaped to survive. And here is the quiet trick underneath it. A lot of those bright, foamy shower products actually leave behind a residue of their own surfactants and fragrances and film formers that give water something extra to cling to. So the more you clean with certain sprays, the faster the next haze arrives, and the more you reach for the bottle. I am not saying every product does this. I am saying the incentive to make it do this is enormous, and you and I were never told to even look. The playing communities were never inside that loop. They never had the 11 bottles. They kept doing the thing their grandmothers did, quietly, correctly, for 150 years, while the rest of us paid monthly rent on a problem we could have retired for free. Now, I promised you a historical anchor, and this is where it gets good, because this is not folklore. This is written down. In 1861, a woman named Isabella Beeton published a massive household guide in England called The Book of Household Management. It became one of the best-selling domestic manuals of the entire 19th century, sitting in kitchens on both sides of the Atlantic. Inside it, among the laundering and scouring instructions, is the principle that hard water leaves its mineral behind when it dries on a surface, and that the trick to bright glass and bright mirrors is to prevent the standing water from drying in place at all. That is the whole secret, printed and public, over 160 years ago, long before a single spray bottle existed. And it goes back further than that. Long before commercial glass cleaner, women kept their windows and mirrors clear by rubbing them with a slightly soapy cloth and then buffing them dry, and by treating carriage lamps and storm windows the same way to keep them from fogging and spotting in the rain. The knowledge that a whisper of soap, buffed thin, repels water rather than attracting it is old. We did not lose it because it stopped working. We lost it because something more profitable was placed on top of it. Now, maybe right about now you are thinking this is fine for someone with all the time in the world, someone with a quiet farmhouse and no job, but not for you. Maybe you are looking at a cabinet already full of sprays you paid good money for and thinking, I am not throwing those out to go rub a soap bar around like it's the 1800s. I hear you. I thought the same thing standing there counting my 11 bottles. So let me give you something you can use tonight, with only what is already in your house, no trip to any store. Look under your kitchen sink right now. If you have plain white vinegar and a bottle of dish soap, you already own the fastest scum remover I have ever used, and it beats every specialty product I threw money at. Here is the exact mix. Warm 1 cup of white vinegar until it is hot to the touch but not boiling. Pour it into a spray bottle or a bowl. Add 1 tablespoon of ordinary dish soap and swirl it. Do not shake it into foam. The heat and the acid in the vinegar break the mineral bond in the scum, and the dish soap grabs the greasy, fatty part of the film and lifts it off. Wipe it on, let it sit 5 minutes, and wipe it away. That crust you have been chipping at for years comes off like wet paper. Right now you are standing at your sink, warming that vinegar, watching years of crust wipe away like it was never glued on, and part of you is wondering what else your pantry can do that no bottle on the shelf ever told you. That is the whole reason I put together the Plain Home Handbook and the deeper Plain Home Protocols gathered into the Complete Plain Home Field Edition. It is the same idea you just watched. Work on your glass, applied room by room, 7 things already in your pantry, 1 clear protocol, real results backed by real chemistry, no subscriptions, no toxic sprays, no wasted scrubbing. Inside, you will learn how 1 dishwasher tablet cleans 6 different surfaces, what plain vinegar does when you stop diluting it, how hydrogen peroxide works as a true disinfectant, and how aluminum foil pulls rust off and brings chrome back to life. And you do not have to take my word for a single line of it. Tonight, walk to your kitchen, grab that same white vinegar you already own, and test it at full strength on 1 spot of hard water buildup, then watch the mineral bond let go, exactly the way the book says it will. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. And here is the honest reason it matters now. That cabinet of sprays under your sink is costing you money every single month it sits there, the same slow bleed you just added up on your shower cleaners. But before you replace a single bottle, there is one more thing that woman in Lancaster County told me, and it is the piece I skipped for too long. And here's the beautiful part, the part that ties it all together. That vinegar and dish soap wipe is exactly the clean, bare surface you need before you rub the soap bar on. So you are not choosing between the two. You use what you already own to strip the glass down today, and then you lay the soap film to keep it from ever coming back. One evening. 2 steps, and you may never buy a shower cleaner again. I want you to notice how little time this actually takes, because the industry sold us on the idea that a clean shower is a daily war. It is not. Once the film is on, you are not scrubbing anymore. You are just enjoying glass that stays clear on its own, touching it up maybe once every couple of weeks. The whole burden they built the market on simply disappears. But even after I had all this working in my own home, that woman in Lancaster County had told me there was one more step, and it nagged at me because when I did the soap trick alone, it worked beautifully for about 2 weeks and then slowly faded. The water started sheeting again. I figured that was just the limit of it. I was wrong. There was a finishing step I had skipped, and when I found it written down in that old material, everything locked into place. So here is the secret finale I promised you. This is the part almost nobody knows, and it is the difference between a trick that lasts 2 weeks and a shield that lasts 2 months. In the old household guides, the ones that predate every modern product, the instruction for keeping glass and polished surfaces bright was never soap alone. It was soap to fill and seal, and then a second pass was something to harden and set that film so the daily water could not wash it off. And the substance they used, the one sitting right there in the plain pantry, was linseed oil, the pressed oil of flax. A few drops of boiled linseed oil on a soft cloth, buffed hard over the soaped, dry glass until there is no greasy feel left at all, only a slick, invisible shine. The soap fills the pits. The oil locks it in and cures into a tough, water-shedding skin over the top. I found this because Isabella Beaton's guide and the American household manuals that followed her describe using linseed oil to protect and brighten surfaces against moisture, and the plain household simply never stopped doing it. One old order family kept that 2-step method alive across 5, 6 generations while the rest of the country was busy learning a jingle for a spray. The knowledge existed. It was shoved aside because you cannot sell a farmer's bottle of flax oil for the price of a branded shower miracle. One household kept it breathing, and now you have it. Let me tell you exactly how to do this last step so you get it right, because there are 2 cautions. First, use only a tiny amount, 3 or 4 drops on the cloth, not a puddle and buff, until the glass squeaks clean of any slick feel, because too much oil will smear and hold dust. Second, make sure the glass is bone dry and the soap film is already buffed on before you add the oil. Soap first, buff. Then, the whisper of oil. Buff again, harder, until it disappears into a shine you can barely tell is there. Do this once, and you will get weeks and weeks of water beating straight off your glass, minerals leaving with it, scum never forming. The first time I did the full 2-step in my own shower and came back 3 days later, the glass was still shedding water like a duck's back, still crystal clear, and I stood there and thought about the $800 and the fumes I had breathed in that little unventilated bathroom for 20 years, and the grandchildren who used to bathe in that same room. All of it unnecessary. All of it replaced by a nickel of soap and 4 drops of an oil pressed from a plant, exactly the way it was done before anyone decided our ignorance was a business model. And that is really what this whole thing is about. Somewhere along the way, a simple piece of knowledge that belonged to every household on this continent was quietly lifted out of our hands and sold back to us in a bottle, 1 month at a time, forever. You were not careless. You were not fooled because you were foolish. You were fooled because the truth was buried on purpose, and the people who buried it made a fortune. If you are the kind of person who would rather own a method than rent a problem, who trusts a farmhouse over a factory, who believes the way your grandmother kept a home was not backward but wiser than anything sold to you since then you already belong here, and you already know in your gut that this is right, so do this one thing for me. Try the soap and the linseed oil on just one panel of your shower glass this weekend and leave the other panel alone and watch which one sheds the water in 3 days. Then come down to the comments and tell me what you saw with your own eyes. And tell me where you are watching from, because I want to know how far this old knowledge is traveling. And if you have ever counted the bottles under your own sink like I did, tell me the number. I want to see if you beat my 11. If recovering what was taken from us matters to you, then stay with me and subscribe, because we are a growing bunch of people quietly digging up the household wisdom that got paved over. And the next thing I am bringing you is the single kitchen ingredient the plain folks use to keep a drain clear, sweet smelling for a year without one drop of that caustic stuff you pour down and pray. You are going to want to be here for that one. I will see you there. Before you go, let me say one thing. Inside the plain home circle, I walk you through the full weekend method, start to finish. And if something puzzles you, ask me right there. And a real person answers you, myself, never a machine. You won't be doing this alone either. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen. And you can cancel anytime, no risk at all. Now that your glass stays clear, let me show you one more little trick for your shower. Just a simple clothespin, something the Amish have used for 200 years. You'll be amazed. It's starting right here.